All right. This is the unedited version of the break because I'm sure I'll have to edit this at some point, but what am I doing? What am I doing, right? I am trying to create something. As I mentioned, probably in a promo that I haven't made yet, to be fairly honest, the break is a concept that I came up with that actually was born out of another idea. And I'm sure this is how a lot of ideas start. So I came up with this idea of, hey, creating this roadmap for new couples, and so that morphed into Marriage and Money as a company. And Marriage and Money was a workshop with a family lawyer and a mediator. And then I tried to make a video series, and I actually did make the video series but never released it. And then I decided to write a book. That's what I'm doing right now, is putting out the book as a roadmap. It's like a real more detailed guide, right? And then from there, I wanted to use content to create, basically pick it up where I left off. Instead of a video series being finite, the idea was to create money conversations, which is more of like a class that has some podcast type of content to it. But here's the deal. So I started thinking about money conversations, and the idea is that it's money. It is conversations in between two people in a partnership. It actually could be between siblings and parents and things of that nature. Same concepts that apply. But I also wanted to make it real and not just theoretical. And sometimes you get one or the other. You get a content out there that's like, here's what you need to do with finances, and it's very technical and very specific. And then you have stuff that's like, here's what you need to do, here's what you need to do, and it's not very technical. And we've all read and heard that content. It's just, you just shake your head. But as I started creating content and I record my thoughts and transcribe them and start to put those together, some of the content, frankly, just was not client. It wasn't suitable for client. I guess that's one way to say it. I think mostly it just wasn't ever going to get to a point where it was just for the end client. And those are just the general public. And I just needed to have something that was for, let's just call it my family. And when I say my family, I have family. All right, I do have family. I'm talking about after spending 16 some odd years, I went on my own and I created some things, but I kind of missed the dialogue and some of the things that I would run into when I would go out to the different offices. We go to the various meetings and conferences, just wealth management. I missed that. Now, to be clear, when I kind of left in 2014, the kind of landscape had changed. So from when I started in 1998. And so I wouldn't say that I am trying to replicate what it was when I started, which was late 90s, early 2000s. Those were good times. I mean, if you're listening to this, probably you were there with me. We were having a good time. And I'm not replicating that. I think what I'm trying to do is just remember and reminisce a little bit. So the break is first and foremost a chance for me to connect with all of you. The second thing is it's a chance for me to kind of show some of the people who may have heard one or two of the stories. And frankly, some of you guys were there, right? You were there. And trust me, it's not meant to be anything to embarrass anybody, but it's meant to kind of just show that kind of that journey that I've been on and I continue to be on. As someone in the mid 40s, I honestly hope I'm still around in the next 15, 20 years. I really do. But I also recognize that there were things that I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have these things and people. So that's the third thing, is recognizing some of the people that were influences on me, positive influence. I mean, look, at the end of the day, there's always going to be people that, frankly, I just didn't have a great experience with. But that actually wasn't as many as you would normally think. I think most of my experiences were pretty positive. So it's a chance for me to recognize the people that really helped me in my journey. So that's the third. But kind of circling back on how I came up with the break, a lot of the content didn't quite work for the end client. So the break is really just it's short for the break room. And we're not going to go back to the 70s where people were like, you watch Mad Men, they're like smoking in the break room and, harassing people. We're not doing all that because this is not a locker room, right? But it's meant to kind of be a different conversation than it would be if it was client facing. And even if we were in a setting where we had a bunch of eyes on us and, we just had to tailor our conversation. If you go in the break room, and I guess I would say if you were back in the day, let's say back in the day, 10, 15, 20 years ago, we'd go in the break room. The conversations in the break room, a lot of it was industry related. What'd you do last weekend? But it also included stories and, experiences that all of us had with clients, and just some of it's kind of humorous, some of it's really it was a learning experience. I think we all kind of gather these experiences to make up who we are. And I would also say that as we look forward, it really helps us kind of have a different perspective, which kind of brings me to, and the whole idea with that is just, we used to gather, we used to have a place to kind of, exchange kind of experiences. I think it also allows us to maybe be a little less politically correct. Now, let me be very clear on this, and I don't want this to be misconstrued. I'm saying that we have things that happen in our lives that they are what they are. And I don't want people to be super sensitive. Now, I think there's a line, and I think a lot of us recognize it, and we talk to each other like, hey, something happened, that's not, it was not meant to be offensive, and and we just hope that we're kind of having people in here that just aren't easily offended. If someone's offended, just say, hey, you know what, that's not cool, right? I said that we were out in Hawaii, and we had somebody made some comments. I wasn't that excited about it, but it's not like I'm sitting there just barking about it. It's just like, look, you know what, it's not cool. Now let's move on, right? And I just want an environment where we can speak with not having to caveat everything we say, because we talk, generally speaking, about things in a way that is just to be more descriptive and less defensive. And when we kind of constrict our experiences because we're offending a certain segment that frankly is going to be offended anyway, then we lose some of the description. And I would like a place, and I don't want this to be like, again, I don't want this to be a locker room at all, but I just think that there's a lot of people, whether it comes to race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, age, did I say age? There are things that we can say, and we're trying to get a point across, and if there's someone's offended, we should be able to say, hey, that doesn't really jive with me. And if I said something that offends somebody, like, first of all, I want to apologize, and that's not my intent. And we can be able to accept an apology and move it on, right? So that's the whole point. But even further than that, we obviously had a major disruption in our industry, again, kind of like a insider's look. But an insider's look from the outside. That's the way I look at this. I'm giving insider's look from the outside, industry related, but may not always be suitable for work. But as we have this major disruption, I also think that there are some things that I see in the very near future that I want to be very specific and go, you guys, we want to be aware of that, and we want to be aware of that, and we want to be aware of that, either from a technology standpoint to how we really provide solutions or whatever we're providing advice for the end clients. I just want to be kind of forward thinking, and I don't want to take this. I don't want to come across as like I got all the answers. I certainly don't. But if I said, hey, I left, the wirehouse or the wealth management area 6 years ago, and I ask you what's changed, I don't think, I think a lot of us would be hard pressed to say that there's been some major changes. It's just, stuff hasn't moved. And a time we had disruption, there's fear and then there's greed. I don't know, Warren Buffett, the last time I remember that story, it was basically when there's people are fearful, you need to be greedy. I'm being greedy. I'm taking a risk. The break is meant to provide a platform, which leads me to kind of my last point, or the reason why I created this, is to create a platform. Yes, I'm doing this and it's kind of about me right now, but to have authentic conversations, authentic content that is not controlled by just one company or the company, if you want to listen to someone from ABC investment company, you should have a central place to go. I mean, I don't know if that's a super crazy concept, but in that, I want that content not just to be so staged. I want the authentic. Look, I'm 2 test questions away from ESL. You guys know that. So what I'm trying to say is I want it to be as relaxed and common, because that's when we connect. And when it's staged, that definitely works for a demographic. And some of the advisors and whoever is consuming this content, if there is an audience that wants that kind of, and I don't want to use the word facade, but just they like that look, right? And that's good. But there's also a crowd that would definitely engage better if we just came across like this. And it's okay to stumble over a word. It's okay to say something that is really in line with what you do and how you do it, in the vein of you and your practice. And guess what? Some of that may not be just exactly to the tune of what the industry expects. I think there's a group that said, you know what, I want you to be yourself, and I'll buy that. Because I think as I look forward, especially as we look at the industry from an assets under management, I think one of the things I'm just going to point out in the beginning is that there's just going to be less chairs for people to sit down in. And the question is, how are we going to deliver? And there's more people that have needs, general advice needs. But if we only are able to do it through investable assets, I think there's going to be a challenge, because people are holding their assets in different ways. I see that here in the Northwest when it comes to people owning businesses, people owning real estate, whether it's a company-sponsored plan, which no one, we're not, the advisors aren't, they're not admins or offering counsel to. So if we're not able to do that, or maybe even it's an insurance product that's already had the load paid and it's been paid, I think there's a way to provide some content around their financial lives. And so I really hope to build a platform that ultimately is a way that wealth management, financial advisors, planners, however we want to call them ourselves, to deliver that content to the end client in a different way. And I was thinking maybe it might be in a way of an interview, whether it's myself and someone else on camera, whether one of us is on camera, the other one's off, or maybe it's there's a couple ways to go about it. I've been kind of thinking about it. Actually was posting a video today on the most valuable way to gift the book, and I was talking about the moderators for the Facebook groups, and one of the ideas was for some of these groups that really need it, and I don't think that's really the platform we want, because the people in there just aren't our crowd. But one of the things I thought was interesting is that they always felt that if professionals come in, they're coming in just to sell stuff. And I was like, well, what if you had a way of hiding their face and they didn't mention what firm they were from? Would that be valuable, as just to answer questions or provide some thoughts to a group? And I was like, wow, what if we could do that? I mean, that's kind of what I do. I mean, I'm in the basement right now, and I'm like, sometimes I'm just kind of thinking like, how can we do something a little different? And that's where the financial creative is always kind of thinking about, not always, how can I think about these things in a way that is different? And then how can we execute, or is it even feasible? Or, what are we doing that could be, do it better? That's what I'm thinking about. And I was raised in an environment that I was encouraged to do that. And then I got to a point where I wasn't encouraged, which it happens, right? I mean, look, not everybody's going to fit in the box. And that's all right. That's okay. But the break, that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to connect with everyone that I haven't connected with. You might ask me, hey, how you doing? Guess what? You're getting a chance to do that through the break, at a reasonable format on demand. You want to hear about the history, because some of that history is going to be lost. There's no documentary on, at least from my standpoint. I started in Citigroup in 1998, which is right after Travelers and Citicorp merged. There's some stories about how that integration worked, and even up until Citigroup spun off Smith Barney. I thought there was just some interesting times, and not from a standpoint of like making it super like salesy on City Smith Barney was the greatest firm in the world, but they were doing stuff that was different. And then at the same time, it's not a tell-all book. I mean, there's just stuff that just let's keep it over there because there was things that happened. We all know that, right? And this is not the platform for it. But I will the stories that are like more PG. There's some stories. There are some stories that should be and I'll leave the names out, and I won't even like get into where they are and what I hope to do is identified about 30 different people that influenced me, but then in that there was a group of people that maybe influence would be a strong word. They just had some interesting stuff that happened. I thought it'd be interesting to share. So I'll leave the names out. I'll identify them by a letter that is in alphabetical order working back, so it's not like oh, that person stands for Mike or Bob or Bill or Ted or whatever. So but I think I can just kind of tell you a little bit of those stories and have a little fun. And again, just give you some thoughts of how content that I'm creating with the Money Conversations platform is working. This is like the back end. This is the cutting room floor, the content and stuff that I thought came out of that, but just never made it. It just cutting room floor, but it still stays good stuff. It's just stuff that probably isn't appropriate for the clients. It just isn't. It happens, right? And then obviously give you some thoughts on the industry, less about what's happening on a day-to-day basis. Although I'll dig into a topic and I'll go deep into a topic. Not deep, so deep that you're like, wow, that's just crazy. But just, maybe tell a couple of stories that give a different perspective. And I think there's a value there. So that's the overview of the break. I haven't decided. And then the last thing I'll tell you is that I'm going to give you an inside look in the back end of Money Conversations and the Most Valuable Wedding Gift. I'll give you some back end on some of the technology that I have to learn. And someone who's not super up to speed on technology, I think some of you will appreciate as you start to look. Now, some of you have firms that will do a lot of this for you, but I think there's some value of kind of giving you an understanding of how some of this stuff works. So, what I find is that when it comes to some of this, when it comes to production, that there are certain schools of thought and they become very rigid on how they do it. And I guess that's okay. I think sometimes they miss the opportunity to, in one area they are very detailed, in other areas you're like, that's probably not as relevant, and they may miss those opportunities. So what you'll see is I'll just give you some things to think about as you start to think about technology, because I know some of you are like, well, I can make video. Well, there's a lot that goes into that. As far as the lighting, it goes in the sound. You won't catch a lot of this. This is all low budget because I'm just doing this just to kind of get the information out. But there's a lot that goes in lighting, the sound, the post-production, the different animation, having things move. Then there's the distribution, which I still think the industry is missing a lot. And I'm not saying that, we should be the center of everything that is on social media, but I just am really, I understand. And look, I'm not anti-firm. There's a couple things. So let me get into the things this is not. I kind of outlined what the break is, but what it's not. One, it's not a platform to bash firms, okay? Firms are just different, right? We have people that we run into in our firm that we like, some people we don't like. I'm not here to bash firms. I'm not here to bash people. I'm really not. There's about 4 people that I'm not really crazy about, but you won't catch me bashing people. I mean, that's my goal, is just not to bash people. Okay? If you're close to me, I might poke you a little bit. I might make clown a little bit, but I'm not here to bash people. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to have fun. I will have some serious topics. There are some things that I think are really important when it comes to diversity. And maybe less in the sense of just pure absolute dollars compared to the firm, what they see, but the growth potential and the opportunity and the need. If you really wanted to look at it, I think there's some holes that we're missing, and specifically I think the middle class, and I kind of outlined why that's an issue when it comes to how people are holding their wealth. But also there's going to be some stuff that's just lighthearted. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people take our industry so is like going to the dentist. I'm like, dude, we're not those people. I mean, not we're not dentists, but we're not so like serious all the time where, we all have a lot of sense of humor. I've been around a lot of you, and it's we've had good times. So I think that there's a way to deliver content that just, we can express that. I don't think that this is the platform for people that are definitely under a year, but I would even say even under 3 years in the business. And you would think actually I can make something that would be great for them and collect some money. That's just not really what I want to do. I really respect the firms making an investment in younger advisors, and I don't want to be responsible for, um, influencing the young minds. This is kind of like grown folks talk, right? This is for people that I've known for like 15 years, 20 years, 25 years now. And so I'm hoping that I really can, and I haven't quite, figured out. I'm not saying I'm kicking people out, but I just don't want this. This is not meant for learning on the job. This is after their bedtime, okay? So the break is for after their bedtime. Um, I also don't. I think it's self-explanatory. I don't want to be this source that's competing with all these industry rag magazines. I mean, look, if you want to learn about who's going where and all that stuff, good for them. I'm not a recruiting vehicle. I don't really care where people are. I mean, I care that they're doing well, but I'm not here to say this person's going here. So I'm not a rumor mill at all. Did I say that funny? Rumor mill. I'm not a rumor mill. Um, I'll just tell you, kind of some things that I think about the industry in general, but not get into where people are going. Um, I hope to keep this to mostly people really to keep people in the financial services industry, in wealth management. I think I have methods to kind of keep this kind of homogenous as far as the conversations. And frankly, when we talk about certain things, they probably will zone out because we'll talk about terms and things that they just won't understand. So hopefully that just lends itself to just being a little different. But yeah, that's kind of the way I envision this. So let me talk a little bit about like some of the numbers. What I'm hoping is I hope to get 100 people just to say that, yeah, this makes sense. At 100 people, this becomes somewhat of I'm not crazy. I'm probably crazy, but 100 people signing up, that's like, okay, I see where you're going with this. When I get to 500 people, then I see that this can be an ongoing concern. 100 people means that, yeah, there's some interest, but 500 people, that means that we could start scheduling these interviews, and I love to, again, bring people on and talk about different topics, what have you. At 1,000, then that's kind of the sweet spot. And it's funny, I've thought about this, and I know people go, 1,000, that's a lot of people. Well, there's a lot of people in the industry, and if you look at my LinkedIn, I mean, that's somewhat of a representative of the people I somewhat have, connected with over the last, 20 some odd years. But I think I won't, I'm not going to commit to capping it. I don't think over 1,500 is I don't want, at a certain level, it's just you're hitting some groups that I don't think really this message isn't for them. It's another way of me saying I don't trust them. I really don't. So I'm just kind of hoping to keep it to a number that's manageable. But I also hope to get to a critical mass where now we can start to create content and then being able to deliver that again. Wealth management, advisors, financial planners to the end clients. And then this is where it gets interesting. If I can, and again, I can gain enough of the interest, I would like to do two things for the people who are selling investment products and services. One is I worked with wholesalers for about 10, 12 years, I would say. And then I was a wholesaler for about 4 years. And so I know how hard it is to get in front of people. And I know that there's a value to the presentations that you give. Wouldn't it be kind of cool if we created a contest, kind of a sales pitch contest? And I know there's some people who are just they are persuasive. So wouldn't it be kind of cool if we hit a certain mass? And I say it's 1,000 people, honestly. If I can get to 1,000 people, then let's go ahead and have a contest. Now, obviously, the firms have to approve it, but it would be your best. I don't know if it would be 2 minutes or 3 minutes, one of the two, something like that. And you get to pitch whatever you want. You can pitch a product, you can pitch your service, you can pitch your firm, you could do whatever you want. And since it's industry only kind of, then you have a little more latitude. Now, the only thing I'm going to caution you is, now I'm not going to be the judge. The people that are in the group, they will judge, right? And that's kind of the cool thing is seeing who has the best pitch. Because I would love to see, I would just sit there and just watch that all day. That's kind of cool to me. But if they get approved from the firms, then now you have something that's their content and you can use that to go outside. But I think that competitive component really is, that's really cool. And the only thing I would warn people is that, you can talk, I mean, since it's something you can talk about, you could bring up another firm, but, you do want to be respectful, right? It's kind of like, the fraternities, if you, at the end of the day, we're competitive, but at the end of the day, we still have respect for other firms. And I'm pretty confident all of us would know how to do that, but I think that'd be really cool to have like an annual, like contest. But that's just me, kind of talking out of my, just talking out loud. But here's the thing. As of now, I was thinking about launching this and taking a look and getting some of this content out. You will see it, but I think I'm asking everyone to just let other people know and I'm not gonna market this at all. When I say market, I'm not gonna say, hey, I'm gonna give it to a certain amount of people and I want them to connect with people, and then we're just gonna keep it in the back end. Because here's the cool part, right? Once you're here, you could comment in the comment section. This is off the grid. This is owned by your boy, Roderick Givens. So compliance cannot come in here and say anything about this because this is my content. This is my content and it cannot be reproduced without my consent. You see how that works? It's my content. It's mine. And this is me, right? So love to have people take a look at it. And frankly, I know early on people are like, great, this is a great place to pitch. I'm like, well, let's get the numbers up first before we start talking about, your pitches. So I'm going to encourage you all to go ahead and say, hey man, get inside, take a look. And to be honest with you, I guess this is the last thing I'll say on this is that I want this to be a membership site. And this is something that is backwards. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I don't want any company sponsorship. And people are like, what? It's a huge opportunity. I know. But I want it to be membership driven. Now, when we get to the part of producing the videos or whatever we do as far as the interviews, if we end up doing something, maybe I'll look at entertaining, but my goal is to build a critical mass of membership and not be owned by a company. I've been around long enough. I know how that works, and I don't think I have to say too much more than that. So membership is reasonable. I think it's reasonable. I really want to hit a critical number. 100, let's celebrate, right? 500, let's start lining up interviews. And I'm gonna cap it at a certain number. Let's say, I don't even want to say what it is, but I've definitely, I don't want everybody on this platform, okay? I want people that appreciate just, interesting content. They want to hear from somebody in the industry. I'll produce the content that is relevant. But my end goal is not to be doing this all the time. This is just to kind of get people here, and I'll continue to add content when appropriate, but my goal is to build a platform that we're able to deliver authentic content from advisors or planners or teams to the end client in a very natural, maybe long format, or content that is for your consumption, just industry talk, and then content that is from products and services to the advisor team. So now you not meant to replace any of the visits and calls when they need specific information, but if you're an advisor, would you value having me sit down and ask questions of a wholesaler and kind of, go through that dialogue, and less so stiff, and you don't have to worry about, you know, obviously everybody's representing their firm, whatever, that's fine, or they could do whatever, or they could just have a conversation as just two people talking about the industry or whatever. So it's going to be less restrictive, and hopefully it's going to be a little bit more valuable. So hopefully that makes sense. But membership only. You don't have to worry. At least I'm not worried about compliance. I'm not giving any, stock tips. Everyone, by the way, is industry. But what's interesting? I didn't realize. So since I have, as you guys know, or you may not know, I own an investment firm. So RIA, that was developed, put together in 2015. I, as someone who works in the industry, can obviously talk to anybody about you, because that's how 1940 Act works. But I couldn't do that if I wasn't registered, or I had to be registered. And it's just a weird rule, that not weird, but it's just, that's the way it works. So it does allow me to have this ability to go out and talk to people about other things if I chose. And I don't have to worry about it being like, oh, that's considered an endorsement. I can endorse because that's what I can do. So I don't plan to make any pitches for anybody, but by interviewing, and part of this is me just tightening up my ability to ask questions. I think I ask decent questions. I think about things in a slightly different way. So if someone's coming in and it's not just your normal, what's your expense ratio? How did you guys do the last 3 years? No. You're talking to a dude who knows. You guys know. I'll run those numbers, and I'll ask those questions. So if you're coming in front of here, we could be cool, but I'm gonna ask some good questions. All right, I'm gonna make it worth it. So, but we don't have a time limit on it either, so it could be long form, and I think people appreciate that. And we could timestamp it and add some notes so people can go to what they need. But sometimes you just want to have stuff to listen to at 2:30 on a Friday. Let's be honest. I gotta get some teenies in. I gotta wrap up my schedule and all that for the week. Sometimes you just want to listen to somebody, and I might bring up my sensitive stuff too, because sometimes I'm not happy about something. So I won't call it a rant, but I might have to bring up some stuff. But you'll get to hear my journey, and then hopefully you hear more about what people tell me. So sometimes I relay stories that I hear, and I leave off the names, and man, some crazy stories, right? So anyway, I rambled a little bit on this. I don't think I think I hit the points that I wanted to. You understand what the break's about. It's meant for you. It's meant to build a platform. It's meant to provide authentic content. And at the end of the day, give a little history, give a little thoughts on the industry, show you my successes, failures when it comes to money conversations, and some light content, some heavy stuff, but stuff for you to think about. And hopefully you find it valuable.